There are places on this earth where you do not merely arrive, you cross a threshold. Morocco is not a destination. It is an initiation. It begins the moment the light changes, when the white of the Atlantic foam meets the warm ochre of the coast, and the air carries something older than language, a scent of cumin, cedar, and salt, a sound of muezzin calls braided with the wind, a feeling deep in the chest that time here does not move in a line, it moves in spirals. This is the country of the labyrinth, not the cold, stone kind, the living kind, the kind made of 10,000 alleys in a city older than memory, the kind woven into geometric tiles that repeat until they become prayer, the kind found in silence so absolute, so complete, that the mind stops searching for the exit and simply surrenders. Morocco sits at the edge of everything. Africa to the south, Europe shimmering across a narrow strip of water, the Atlantic crashing to the west, the Sahara stretching east, boundless, unconcerned with maps. Between these forces, a civilization has been building for 3,000 years, not despite the pressure, because of it. To travel here is to feel the pull of all directions at once. To surrender to that pull is to begin. Tangier does not ease you in. It greets you like a collision. Stand here at the northern tip of Africa, where the Mediterranean and the Atlantic refuse to agree, where the waters visibly clash, cold current against warm green against blue, and you will understand immediately that this is no ordinary city. This is a seam, a scar in the geography of the world that has never fully healed, and it is magnificent for it. For centuries, empires did not merely want Tangier, they needed it. Phoenicians, Romans, Vandals, Arabs, Portuguese, Ottomans, and eventually 9 nations ruling it together in the 20th century, calling it an international zone, as if geography could be governed by committee. The city absorbed them all. It filed their secrets away in its walls and said nothing. Walk the Medina as dusk gathers, and the souks come alive in a language of sensation. Cumin and saffron stain the air a deep, invisible amber. Lantern light spills across stone that has absorbed 8 centuries of footsteps. The raw mineral smell of leather drifts from passages too narrow for shadows to fill completely. But beneath the intrigue, beneath the spice and the stone, Tangier holds one name above all others: Ibn Battuta. Born in these very streets in 1304, this man did not merely explore the world, he consumed it. By the time he finally set down his pen, he had walked 75,000 miles. He crossed the Sahara. He sailed to the Malabar coast. He reached Mali, the court of the great Khan, the shores of Anatolia, the harbors of East Africa. He outwalked Marco Polo by a distance that maps still struggle to contain. Tangier did not produce a traveler. It produced the very idea of travel itself. The radical, restless notion that the world exists to be understood, and that the only honest way to understand it is to go. There is a color that does not simply surround you in Chefchaouen. It enters you. cobalt, indigo, the trembling blue of shallow water at noon. It pours down walls that have held it for 5 centuries. It pools on staircases too narrow for logic. It gathers in doorways where cats stretch in soundless contemplation, as if the color itself were a form of warmth, and everything in the city were slowly leaning into it. The story of this blue begins in grief and transcendence. In the 15th century, as the Reconquista tore through southern Spain with the precision of a theological scalpel, waves of Jewish families crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, carrying almost nothing except tradition. They arrived in these high folds of the Rif Mountains and began to build. And then they painted. Blue was not decoration. Blue was theology. In the Jewish mystical tradition, the color, techelet, carried the name of God. It was woven into prayer shawls and temple curtains, into the fringes worn close to the body as a reminder of the sky, the sea, and the sacred beyond both. To live within blue walls was to dwell in perpetual acknowledgement of something greater. Over generations, the boundaries of tradition dissolved into the beauty of practice. Muslim families adopted the blue without erasing its meaning. They gave it new meaning. The color spread, climbed, and covered until an entire city had become a single consecrated surface. A place where theology had become architecture, and architecture had become sensation. Wander the Medina in the hour before sunrise, when the light is still uncertain and the stone holds the night's cool within it. The blue in that light does not shine, it breathes. Fez does not welcome you, it swallows you whole. Passed through the Babu Jalud, its arch tiled in cobalt on one face, emerald green on the other, a gateway that encodes its own symbolism, and the city closes around you like a fist. Not hostile, simply absolute. 9,000 alleys, no 2 of them straight, no cars, no bicycles, no maps that hold their truth beyond the second turn. In Fez El Bali, the largest car-free urban zone on Earth, you navigate by sound. The bright, insistent hammer of the coppersmiths pulls you east. The deep animal rawness of the tanneries, ammonia, pigment, untreated hide, rises from a direction you had not planned to go. Follow it. The balconies above the leather quarter, and you look down into a scene that exists outside of ordinary time. Stone vats the size of wells, filled with the colors of an ancient palette: madder red, saffron gold, indigo, the bright green of dried malachite. Workers move through the dye with the patient sureness of men who learned the motion from their fathers, who learned it from their fathers' fathers for 30 generations without interruption. It is not beautiful in the way a garden is beautiful. It is beautiful the way a river is beautiful, raw, functional, indifferent to your admiration, and precisely because of that indifference, completely impossible to look away from. And at the very center of Fez, older than its walls, older than its reputation, rests the University of Al-Qarawiyyin, founded in 859 by Fatima al-Fihri, a woman in a century that rarely preserved women's names for posterity. It has never stopped teaching, not for invasions, not for plagues, not for the slow, relentless passage of 11 centuries. It holds the title of the oldest continuously operating university on Earth, and it wears that distinction with the quiet confidence of something that has never needed to announce itself. Stand in its courtyard and feel the specific gravity of that continuity, the weight of questions asked, aloud, without ceasing, for over 1,000 years. Philosophy, jurisprudence, mathematics, astronomy, grammar, the precise and infinite unpacking of meaning from language. The silence inside Al-Qarawiyyin is not empty. It is full, saturated with the echo of every voice that ever searched for an answer here and left, still searching. History's greatest ambitions rarely announce themselves gently. Sometimes they build a gate and let the gate do the talking. Meknes is the empire Morocco nearly forgot it had. History has a habit of crowding its own stage. Fez commands intellectual reverence. Marrakesh demands sensory surrender. Casablanca offers the restless grammar of the modern. And so Meknes, despite its scale, despite the sheer, almost irrational ambition that built it, stands a little apart, quieter, watchful, content to let its gate say what words cannot. Sultan Moulay Ismail dreamed in the proportions of Versailles. He looked at the Sun King's palace across the Mediterranean, that theater of absolute power dressed in gilded marble, and decided Morocco deserved no less. Between 1672 and 1727, he bent the full force of a dynasty toward a single city, reshaping Meknes into an imperial capital of 40 kilometers of ramparts, 18 monumental gates, royal stables that could house 12,000 horses, and a palace complex whose scale, even in ruin, confounds modern measurement. The labor came from everywhere. Christian slaves, prisoners from European sea conflicts, convicted criminals, and conscripted subjects worked in the shadow of an ambition they would never live to see completed. The weight of those lives is still present in the walls. You can feel it, a density in the stone that goes beyond geology. His mausoleum, one of the few sacred sites in Morocco open to non-Muslim visitors, answers the gate with a whisper. Where Bab Mansour proclaims, the mausoleum meditates. Carved stucco spreads across every wall in patterns so intricate they appear to grow rather than having been cut. The light arrives through latticed cedar in shafts so precise they feel intentional, and perhaps they are, because in Islamic architecture, light is not decoration. It is argument. It says, beauty is not vanity, beauty is proof. A short journey from the imperial city leads to Volubilis, and to the disorienting realization that Morocco's history does not begin with Morocco. Rome was here. Its mosaic floors still shimmer with mythological scenes. Orpheus playing to the animals, Bacchus enthroned, Diana at the hunt. The tesserae, millions of tiny stone chips, each placed by hand 2,000 years ago, have held their colors with a permanence that shames contemporary materials. To walk among these stones is not to visit the past. It is to stand at a crossroads where every direction leads to a different century. Meknes holds all of this within its ramparts without contradiction. Roman, Islamic, Baroque in ambition, Berber in foundation, it is the city that reminds you Morocco has never been a single story. It has always been an argument between empires, conducted in stone. Every country gets the capital it deserves, or the capital its history demands. Morocco got Rabat, a city of paradoxes, held in balance so elegantly that most visitors walk straight through it before realizing what they felt. The Hassan Tower was meant to be the largest minaret in the world. Begun in 1195 under the Almohad Sultan Yaqub al-Mansur, the same dynasty that built the Qutubiyya in Marrakech and the Giralda in Seville, it reached 44 meters before the Sultan died, and the project died with him. What remains is, in a strange way, more eloquent than completion would have been. The hundreds of columns that surround it, all cut short, all standing in their correct positions without a roof to support, create the floor plan of a great mosque rendered in pure absence. You walk through the space between them and feel, with your body, the scale of what was intended. Ambition preserved in its own incompletion. The Kasbah of the Udayas sits above the Atlantic with the confidence of a place that has been watching the sea for 8 centuries and has never once flinched. Its walls are painted white and blue, not the theological blue of Chefchaouen, but the maritime blue of a port that has always understood its power comes from the water. Walk its ramparts and the Atlantic spreads below you without end. Europe has long since dropped below the horizon. What remains is wind, water, and the sensation of standing at the precise edge where the known world ran out of names. Inside the Kasbah, alleys open onto gardens where orange trees grow in geometric order, and the air carries that particular sweetness, blossom and salt air that belongs exclusively to Morocco's Atlantic coast. It is a scent that does not translate into language. It can only be remembered, and only by people who have stood here. Rabat does not overwhelm. It convinces, slowly, the way a long argument convinces, not by force, but by the cumulative weight of evidence. The broad French colonial avenues, their proportions designed for empire, now carry the unhurried rhythm of a modern capital that has made its peace with its own contradictions. A city where a 12th century Almohad tower overlooks a functioning parliament, where the medieval and the municipal share the same sky, and neither one seems to notice the incongruity. This is what it means to be a capital that has absorbed its own history without being crushed by it. Not a museum city, not a modern city pretending the past did not happen. Something rarer and more difficult. A city that has agreed to carry all of it forward simultaneously in full daylight. Some places on earth are beautiful, and then there are the places that make you question your prior understanding of the word. There is no mythology adequate to Lixira. The place has already outpaced imagination. These stone arches were not built. They were liberated by the Atlantic, working in millimeter increments across 30 million years of patient erosion, carving the soft Devonian sandstone until only the hardest material remained standing. What stands now are gates, enormous, asymmetric, ancient beyond the reach of human reckoning, that open onto nothing but the open Atlantic and the weight of geological time. Stand at low tide, when the wet sand reflects the sky and the arches cast their shadow in a perfect mirror below, and you will experience something that resists being named. Not peace exactly. Not awe in the religious sense, though it rhymes with it. Something older. A physical reckoning with scale, with duration, with the articular silence that opens inside a person when confronted by a force so much older and larger than anything human. That comparison becomes meaningless. The cliffs here are crimson, the color of dried blood, of iron oxide, of the deep earth exposed by the patient surgery of water. Against the white Atlantic foam and the impossible blue of the Moroccan sky, they create a contrast so saturated it appears processed, artificial, too vivid to be real. It is not too vivid. The world is this vivid. Most of the time, we simply are not looking. At sunset, Lexira makes its final argument. The stone arches catch the dying light and hold it, not merely reflecting, but seeming to emit it, glowing from a heat source within the rock itself. The entire cove becomes a single composition of red stone, white water, and fire-colored sky. And in those minutes between daylight and dark, when the ocean turns to hammered bronze and the arches burn against it, you understand that geology and theater are, at their extremes, the same art. Casablanca does not carry its history in stone. It carries it in motion. Every other great Moroccan city is, in some sense, a monument to a specific century. Fez to the 9th in the Niim, Meknes to the 17th, Marrakech in its bones to the 11th. Casablanca is a monument to now, to the convulsive, unfinished, relentlessly self-reinventing now of the 21st century. It is the city where Morocco decided to meet the modern world on its own terms, and the negotiation has never stopped. The Hassan II Mosque requires a different kind of attention. It is not subtle. It does not reveal itself slowly, the way Fez reveals itself, or Rabat, or Chefchaouen. It commands. Built between 1986 and 1993, driven by the personal vision of King Hassan II, who reportedly received his inspiration from a Quranic verse, declaring that God's throne was built upon the water. It extends partially over the Atlantic on a platform of reclaimed land, its foundations taking the direct impact of the ocean's swell. 30,000 craftsmen worked for 7 years to fill its interior with Zelig tile, carved stucco, and cedar wood of a quality and quantity that amounts to a summation of the entire Moroccan artisanal tradition. Stand inside and look upward. The retractable roof opens to the sky. The prayer hall is vast enough to contain entire neighborhoods. The minaret ascends 210 meters and terminates in a laser beam directed toward Mecca, which is, depending on how you feel about the intersection of faith and technology, either the most beautiful or the most startling thing in the city. Perhaps it is both. Perhaps Casablanca specifically requires that both be true simultaneously. But Casablanca is not only its monument. Step away from the Hassan II waterfront, away from the glass towers and the Art Deco grandeur of Mohammed V Square, and the city shifts register. The old Medina, smaller than Fez, less overwhelming than Marrakech, offers the particular gift of the authentic, without the theatrical. Narrow streets that have not been prepared for tourists. Fish stalls where the catch is hours old at most. Sold on ice, still dusted with the brine of the Atlantic. Women with shopping bags navigating the same lanes their grandmothers navigated at the same hour. for the same purpose. There is a cafe on the corner of a street with no name worth knowing that serves coffee, the color of dark mahogany thickened with sugar, accompanied by a single piece of mussmen, the layered honeyed flatbread, folded on a small plate. In the morning, the light through the doorway falls across the zinc counter at an angle that could be studied. That has probably been studied by painters, by photographers, by travelers, keeping journals in languages this city will never speak. Casablanca accumulates you. It does not reveal itself in a single session. It requires return visits, each one peeling back another version of the city, a different layer of the negotiation between what Morocco has always been and what it is in the process of deciding to become. And that negotiation, like the Atlantic that frames it, shows no sign of resolution, which is perhaps precisely the point. The Atlas Mountains do not ask you to admire them. They ask you to reconsider your scale. For 8,000 years, the Berber people have been building their homes from the mountain's own body. Stone cut from the slopes, cedar from the forests above, earth from the valley floor, so that the architecture and the geology become, eventually, the same thing. You cannot always tell where the mountain ends and the village begins. That ambiguity is not an accident. It is the central principle of a civilization that has survived every empire that attempted to absorb it by being simply more permanent than any of them. The Romans passed. The Vandals passed. The Arab dynasties rose and transformed everything below the tree line. The French colonial administration drew borders and built roads. The Berber villages watched from above and endured, and continued to hang laundry in the morning light. The summit of Jebel Toubkal, North Africa's highest point, offers no comfort and no shelter, only the view. And the view is a reckoning. The entire country spreads below, the silver thread of the Draa River cutting south toward the desert, the red earth plains of Marrakesh's hinterland, the distant Atlantic coast reduced to a pale haze at the edge of sight, the Sahara, on a clear day, visible as a warm discoloration of the southern horizon. To stand here is to understand Morocco, not as a collection of cities, but as a single organism, a geography with a spine. And this is the spine. Everything else, the Medinas, the dunes, the Atlantic ramparts, the blue alleys, the tanneries, hangs from these mountains. Marrakesh is the red city in the way fire is red, not as a color, but as a condition. The walls of the Medina have been the color of dried roses for 9 centuries. The dust in the alleys is terracotta. The evening sky, filtered through Saharan haze, turns the entire city the color of hammered copper. You do not visit Marrakesh. You are steeped in it, slowly, completely, until you carry some of its pigment home in your clothes and your memory. In the Jema el Fina at nightfall, the square enacts its oldest ritual, the transformation of a public space into a theater that no one directs. Snake charmers and storytellers, acrobats and musicians, vendors of freshly squeezed orange juice and slow-simmered sheep's head. They assemble each evening in a pattern that has no written rule and no apparent organizing principle. yet produces the same result every night. Controlled chaos, orchestrated accident, a nightly proof that some things work better without a plan. The road south from Marrakesh is a slow erasure. The mountains peel away the green, the village is thin, the sky grows larger in proportion to everything beneath it. By the time Ouarzazate appears, the gateway city, the threshold between the Atlas world and the desert world, the land has already made its position clear. From here forward, the rules change. The Sahara begins where language runs out. The dunes of Erg Shebi rise more than 150 meters from the flat Hamada around them, great slow waves of wind-formed sand that shift imperceptibly between dawn and dusk, carving their own crests and dissolving their own ridges in a process so gradual it is invisible to a single human life, but unmistakable across decades. To sit at the crest of one of these dunes and watch the light change is to feel, physically, the difference between clock time and geological time. The clock stops mattering. What remains is light and wind and the particular silence of a landscape that does not require you. We began here, at the seam, at the place where two great bodies of water press against each other and refuse to merge, each one maintaining its temperature, its salinity, its character, across a boundary that has no wall and no name, only a persistent, visible difference. It seems right to end here too, because this, in the end, is what Morocco is. Not a destination that reveals itself and is done. Not a postcard of a place, consumed and filed, but a seam, a permanent living threshold between forces that have been pressing against each other for longer than civilization has had words for the experience. Africa and Europe, separated by 14 kilometers of contested water. The Atlantic and the Mediterranean, separated by nothing but temperature and memory. The medieval and the modern, the Berber and the Andalusian, the sacred and the sensual. In Morocco, none of these oppositions resolve. They coexist, they argue, they press against each other across boundaries that are real but not solid. And in the friction between them, something is continuously produced. Call it culture, call it civilization, call it the particular energy of a place that has spent 3,000 years at the crossroads of everything, absorbing every influence without losing its own gravity. A cycle returns to where it began and finds the same thing. A spiral returns to where it began and finds everything changed. The same point in space, a different altitude, a different view. Every traveler who comes here traces a version of the same spiral. You enter through the northern gate. You go deeper, into the Medinas, into the mountains, into the desert. You reach the silence at the center of the labyrinth, which is not emptiness, but the opposite. A fullness so complete that the mind, accustomed to noise, does not recognize it at first. And then you emerge. Back through the gate, back across the threshold. Changed. Morocco does not let you go. That is its oldest secret and its most generous gift. You carry the labyrinth with you. You always will.